The shock didn't come from a photograph or a public announcement. It came from a whisper that refused to stay contained, spreading through industry circles before reaching fans. According to multiple sources, Heughan had quietly done what no one believed possible: married Dakota Johnson without leaving a single obvious trace. No paparazzi shots, no social media hints, no carefully staged confirmation followed. What stunned observers most was how thoroughly the event appeared to have been hidden. In an era where even private ceremonies are often leaked within hours, this one seemed to vanish into thin air. People close to both actors described an intentional effort to remain completely off the radar. The absence of noise became the first clue that something significant had happened. For months leading up to the alleged ceremony, Heughan's public behavior showed a subtle but consistent pattern. He deflected personal questions more firmly than usual, avoided casual speculation, and narrowed the scope of his public appearances. None of it was dramatic enough to trigger alarm at the time. In hindsight, it reads like preparation. Dakota Johnson, meanwhile, appeared to recalibrate her visibility in quieter ways. She did not disappear, but she selectively withdrew from moments that typically invite scrutiny. Red carpet appearances became less frequent, and interviews focused almost exclusively on work. Those watching closely now believe this restraint was deliberate. Sources suggest the ceremony itself was designed to leave no footprint. A limited guest list, an isolated location, and strict control over access were reportedly non-negotiable. Phones were restricted, schedules staggered, and even close acquaintances were kept unaware until after the fact. This was not secrecy born from fear, but from determination. The scale of coordination required raised immediate questions. Such an operation is nearly impossible without absolute trust between everyone involved. It implies long-term planning rather than impulsive romance. That realization reframed the story from a spontaneous elopement to a carefully protected decision. What transformed the rumor into a scandal was not the marriage itself, but the secrecy surrounding it. Fans were less shocked by the idea of commitment than by the realization that they had been entirely unaware. The illusion of proximity many felt toward both actors cracked instantly. Silence, once interpreted as privacy, now looked like concealment. Industry insiders began pointing to external pressures that may have influenced the choice. Contracts, brand partnerships, and carefully cultivated public images can complicate personal milestones. Announcing a marriage at the wrong moment can trigger unwanted consequences far beyond headlines. Keeping it quiet may have felt like the safest option. Yet secrecy comes with its own cost. Once whispers escape containment, they multiply quickly, fueled by the very absence of confirmation. The lack of denial only intensified speculation, while the lack of proof kept the story suspended in tension. Every past interaction was suddenly reinterpreted through a new lens. What makes this moment so volatile is the clash between expectation and reality. Fans often believe they can sense major life changes, especially in figures they follow closely. Discovering that something so significant could happen unnoticed unsettled that belief. It reminded everyone that access is curated, not guaranteed. As the story continues to circulate, one truth becomes increasingly clear. Whether officially confirmed or not, the idea of a secret marriage has already altered perception. Heughan and Dakota Johnson are no longer viewed through the same assumptions as before. And once that shift occurs, it cannot be undone quietly. The real tension began after the rumor escaped private circles and entered public conversation. Once the idea of a secret marriage attached itself to Heughan and Dakota Johnson, silence stopped being neutral. What had once protected privacy now amplified suspicion. The absence of confirmation became part of the story rather than its solution. Sources familiar with Hollywood crisis management suggest this kind of secrecy rarely exists without pressure. Marriage itself is not the shock, the timing and concealment are. Contracts, upcoming projects, and image alignment can all complicate public disclosure. In that context, keeping the ceremony quiet may have felt less like deception and more like risk management. What fans labeled shocking secrets did not emerge as dramatic revelations, but as small, unsettling details. Missed events that suddenly made sense, interviews that avoided future-focused questions, and subtle shifts in tone now appeared coordinated. None of these elements prove anything on their own. Together, they created a pattern that refused to be ignored. The most controversial question became whether the secrecy was meant to protect something beyond privacy. Industry insiders speculated about timing conflicts, long-term commitments, and the potential impact on brand narratives carefully built over years. Public acknowledgement can lock people into expectations they may not be ready to manage. Silence, while risky, preserves flexibility. As speculation grew, media outlets faced a dilemma. Publishing unconfirmed details risked credibility, yet ignoring the story meant losing control of the narrative. The result was cautious framing, heavy on sources say, and light on absolutes. This ambiguity kept the scandal alive without pushing it toward resolution. Fans reacted in waves rather than unison. Some defended the right to privacy, arguing that secrecy does not equal wrongdoing. Others felt blindsided, not because of the marriage, but because of the realization that they had been so thoroughly unaware. The emotional response was less about betrayal and more about recalibration. What complicated matters further was the lack of visible fallout. There were no abrupt changes in public behavior, no defensive statements, and no attempts to redirect attention. Both Sam Heughan and Dakota Johnson appeared to carry on with composure, as if nothing had shifted. That steadiness unsettled observers expecting damage control. From a strategic perspective, maintaining normalcy can be intentional. Drawing attention to a rumor often validates it, while ignoring it can allow interest to peak and fade. This approach relies on patience and a tolerance for short-term noise. Not every public figure is willing to endure that uncertainty. Still, secrecy has a shelf life. Once a story reaches a certain scale, unanswered questions tend to linger. Fans began to ask whether confirmation would eventually arrive, or whether silence was meant to be permanent. The longer the pause stretched, the more the narrative hardened around speculation rather than fact. What makes this situation different from typical celebrity gossip is its plausibility. There is no outrageous claim, no implausible scenario, only a quiet decision executed with precision. That realism makes the story harder to dismiss. It feels less like fantasy and more like something that could genuinely happen. As discussions continued, a broader theme emerged. The scandal highlighted the illusion of access that surrounds public figures. Visibility creates familiarity, but familiarity does not grant insight. Discovering that a major life event could unfold unnoticed forced many to confront that gap. In the end, the shocking secrets may not be secrets at all, but boundaries misunderstood. Choosing privacy in a public life inevitably looks like concealment from the outside. Whether the marriage is ever confirmed, denied, or left unaddressed, the impact has already landed. Perception has shifted, and with it, the way this story will be remembered. One final detail continues to fuel the unease surrounding the story. Those close to the situation suggest that neither Sam Heughan nor Dakota Johnson expected the rumor to surface when it did, or in the form it took. The timing disrupted a plan built around patience and distance, not headlines. Whether intentional or not, the leak changed the balance, turning a private choice into a public puzzle that may never be fully solved. Discovering that a major life event could unfold unnoticed forced many to confront that gap.